Hey everybody, with the Consumer Technology Association, I'm Tyler Suiters. We are the owners and the producers of CES, the world's largest, the world's most influential tech event. And we are here to help you get CES ready. Our upcoming show is January 7th through the 10th, 2020 in Las Vegas, as always. And today, we are tackling the topic of fitness and, more largely, wearables. We're delving into how advances in sensor technology, smart fabrics, flexible membranes, cloud computing, this is all a topic that we tackle at CES. And today specifically, two unique angles on the idea of wearables. One is the aspect of simply sensing what is going on, whether you're moving, you're running, you're sleeping. It could be a health application, an industrial application, all kinds of approaches. And then a more narrow focus on sleep itself. Our guests today, first of all, Awarables, a startup company based here in Washington, D.C. that will be in Eureka Park among the amazing startup event that is in place there at CES. And Awarables is focused on improving sleep quality. Now, this goes beyond just hacking your sleep and helping everyday consumers sleep better. This is technology driven by a doctor who has worked with the federal government and for the federal government on people who have true sleep problems. Think insomnia. Also, a conversation with a company from the Netherlands called Xsens. This is a company that deals with, we'll call it the guts of wearables, sensors themselves, and also a little bit of a look into what it takes to make the Netherlands such a strong innovation champion in the CTA International Innovation Scorecard. What drives that country to be such a tech leader given its relatively small place in the world? All of that is coming up on this edition of CES Tech Talk. With us in studio right now, a startup on the cutting edge of sleep technology, which is very much a wearable space. From Awarables, first Chief Science Officer and co-founder Madhvi Upender. Madhvi, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having us, Tyler.
And Amrit is CTO and co-founder of Awarables. Amrit, it's good to have you with us today.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah, and that's a Bandy, rhymes with candy.
Good to remember. Thank you. Great to have you with us. Why DC, first of all? CTA is here in the Washington, D.C. area, which makes sense as a trade organization. Why choose Washington as a tech sector?
I think DC is one of the best tech sectors you can have. It means we are a bit looked over compared to Silicon Valley, but we have the most amazing colleges around. We have a workforce that is actually very loyal. We'll work with the same company for more than 5 years, maybe 10 years, and is actually loyal to their company. And we're in the middle of policy and how the world operates. So we can actually be a part of the conversation of making this technology, bring it to market and bring it to the market the right way.
That sounds awfully sophisticated for a startup company to have an eye on policy and what is happening in the larger legislative and regulatory world. Do you feel like you're especially advanced in that sector compared to some of your peers?
We're definitely in touch with it. So my background is more on the healthcare side and clinical side. So I came from the NIH as my background. So there's this connection with keeping in mind, consumer health, but also making sure that it has medical relevance and clinical relevance. And now I think there's so much overlap between healthcare implementation and healthcare policy with all this growth in consumers being more active in their health. So I think DC is an amazing area.
Well, I don't want to lose sight of your company itself, Awarables. And yes, this has to do with wearable technology. Yes, it is about health and sleep and wellness. But you have a specific direction for Awarables having to do with what you feel is really an underserved portion of the consumer market, correct?
Yes, so we are looking at people who would identify with the words that my sleep is broken, that I have difficulty with sleep, that I'm suffering, that they have a high pain point, and what they want to do is get better. They might identify with having symptoms of insomnia. If you're the person who is a part of that 3 a.m. club, that you're awake at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., and you know that you lie there staring at the ceiling, having rather negative thoughts, and it spirals. If you feel like you're tired all the time, but maybe not sleepy enough to actually go to sleep, that you're tired, and your life is suffering, and you actually also don't want to be on pharmaceuticals, then we are the right company for you.
Well, tell me how you all attack that, please. And Madhvi, we'll start with you as,
Sure.
as Chief Science Officer. And coming from the National Institutes of Health, what about the scientific aspect of how you approach what Amrit has described as a serious health concern?
Right. So I think now the public is more and more aware and learning a lot about the importance of sleep and just overall health. We know that it impacts your daytime performance in every aspect of your emotional health, physical health, cognitive health. So what we've done, I think, which is different from most other companies attacking sleep, is we're taking a holistic approach where we're actually developing a wearable device that measures sleep at a clinical level. So it measures your sleep quality through the night, not just the amount of you're awake or sleeping. We can actually tell you how long you've been in REM sleep and deep sleep, and it's a comfortable wearable sensor that you wear overnight. And then we also have taken that further into helping people improve sleep. Once you know how you sleep, you need to understand how what areas that are broken you want to fix. So we implement that by, again, using clinically validated methods for behavioral therapy and guide you through those different steps of programs that help you improve sleep. And we essentially hold you in guiding the different therapies that are used for how you can fall asleep faster, what to do when you're awake in the middle of the night, what things not to do, all of those things. So we're taking that as a holistic approach to help you measure sleep and help you improve.
So it sounds at one level simple to say we're measuring sleep and we're doing these various measurements, but that seems to be the most challenging part in some ways, right? How do you effectively measure sleep? How does a wearable tackle that?
So for measuring sleep, the most important thing that you can do is, one, we target the fact that we have to do it for an insomniac, so it has to be done at home. Right now it's done in a sleep lab, which is targeted at people who have sleep apnea, where in one night you can measure if they get enough airflow. For an insomniac, that does not matter. Maybe you slept that night, maybe you did not. You're usually strapped up to around 20 electrodes, and you spend the night in the hospital. So
a lot of variables outside
yes.
of what it's like in your own home when you're suffering from insomnia.
Absolutely. And that actually is reimbursed at around $1,500 a night, which is an archaic system. The goal is to do that every night, as many nights as you need as a person at home, and it needs to tell you whether you get deep sleep, which is called slow wave sleep, and REM sleep. These are two different things. Deep sleep is actually when your body heals itself. It happens in the first half of the night. This is also when you remember memories like, today we came for this interview. It was at 12 o'clock. We had a good discussion. All these memories are consolidated during deep sleep. REM is when you actually learn complex skills, like playing the piano or actually doing your job, which happens on autopilot. That happens in increasing intervals through the night. This is actually a picture of what that looks like, which nobody can see.
I try to describe the picture, Amrit, but it's beyond me. I'll let you talk us through it, though. But the point is, deep and REM sleep are the two key areas.
Yes, and you need to measure those, because there are people who might sleep for 7 hours and actually not get enough REM sleep or enough deep sleep, and they'll be suffering. Anybody who does not get deep sleep will say that I feel tired all the time. And we need to actually first find out what's wrong with their sleep. And also being able to, there's also something called limbo sleep. That's my term, but it's called fragmented sleep, but it's when you don't know whether you're sleeping or awake, and you drift in and out, and you actually want to nail that accurately to be able to come up with the right therapies.
Right. Makes sense. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't want to gloss over the sleep signature graph that you're sharing. What we'll do is, for everyone listening now, we'll put this up on our Twitter feed for you at CES, so you can see exactly what Amrit and Madhvi are talking about. Talking again about the space broadly, Madhvi, what enables tech to be this crossover vehicle to address a problem like this, to heal an insomniac where therapies aren't complete, analysis isn't complete, rehabilitation or whatever term you want to use isn't enough. Why does tech have to be a part of the equation?
Right. So I think, especially in sleep, a lot of the work is done by these surveys or by questionnaires because there's a lack of tools that are available for doctors to assess sleep accurately. So even for insomnia, there are these sort of standard questionnaires, so Insomnia Severity Index and Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index. These are clinical measures, but they're all self-reported. And sleep, it happens when you're not aware, obviously. So it's very difficult to get accurate measurements of when you're falling asleep, if you're awake in the middle of the night, all of these things. So technology can provide that objective quantitation and quality of sleep.
So it's interesting. That sounds like a means of addressing, I don't know, say each of us sprains an ankle, and by some happenstance, they're all the same degree. It's a level 1 sprain or whatever you might say. And a questionnaire or a doctor says, what's your pain level? How much? And we get a 1, a 3, and an 8. And it's all theoretically the same level of pain. So it's eliminating that almost human error. Is that a fair way to put it?
Right, and it's also the perception, right? So people who have sleep problems have some sort of a bias. A lot of people underestimate the level of sleep that they do get. So one of the things that these objective measurements will do is that show a person you're actually getting a decent amount of sleep. Maybe it's more than you actually think you're getting. So I think it's reassuring them or helping them see their quality of sleep and see what they need to improve. So perception is a huge thing.
Yeah, and your analogy is on point. And in sleep, the added element is that you have no way of knowing whether you actually get deep sleep or not.
It's even more of a guess.
Yeah, it's X-raying something that you could not even know. It's not possible for you to know. There are a lot of people who dream a lot and don't remember that they did in the morning. So that is a big part of the wearable part of it. Awarables is aware wearables.
Yes. I'm sure a lot of thought went into that name. Amrit, if we're going down that road, I'm curious about something you said earlier, which is, in essence, this is an underserved population. How did you all target this? How did you identify this as being underserved, people with real sleep problems, versus what the much larger marketplace would be, which is people who just want to sleep better?
Yeah, so we did more than 150 customer interviews to find out who needs this the most and what is their pain and what are they looking for. In that, it was always, this area has always had fascination from everybody, whether it's somebody who wants to lucid dream, somebody who wants to hack sleep to perform better. And then there was this population that actually they're not that it's not about sleep monitoring, it's about sleep improvement, that they're broken. And we actually did free-form interviews with them that just what is your pain? How do you want to get better? Whom do you lean on for advice? And they poured out. They all often are awake at 3 a.m. and go to the deep, dark corners of the internet and write and read. And that is not healthy. One of the biggest problems in the area has been that if you take one thing away from this podcast, the way to get better in insomnia is actually cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. That is actually the guidelines by the American College of Physicians on how to get better even before you're given a sleeping pill.
But that starts with a diagnosis, correct? Or an accurate diagnosis?
Insomnia is a lot to do with if you feel like you have insomnia, you probably have a sleep problem. And half the people in our interviews told us that some of them skip the medical system, or some of them go and get a sleeping pill too early. It's nobody's fault. It's the doctor has 7 minutes to take care of you. And some of them go to a sleep lab incorrectly. So the big problem over there is that there are only 200 to 500 therapists who are trained in sleep to give out CBTI.
And that's nationally in the U.S.?
Nationally in the U.S.
Okay.
So there's a knowledge problem that, well, how do you get better? It's actually a bit on the low side even in the medical community. 2, how do you get it to 50 million people who have insomnia when there are 200 people who are actually trained in it? So that is where technology comes in. And then as a company, it's important for us to know, who are we dealing with? We're dealing with somebody who is tired all the time. So whatever technology we present to them One, it has to be very comfortable. It cannot disturb your sleep. And it also has to deal with who you are. You're somebody who's hurting. One day you're going to feel like you can change the whole world and you can read everything to do with sleep. One day you'll be out of it and you'll be cloudy. And you won't have the patience to even go through one line that the app has to tell you. So that is what this app has to pull off, that actually take care of you, help you get better, hold your hand, and be a friend through getting better in sleep.
Be a friend, yeah. Madhvi, your approach for CES 2020, this is for both of you the first time at the show, and the first time a wearable has been on a stage like this. You'll be in Eureka Park, which is the home for startups. How are you approaching it?
Well, we're starting early, trying to talk to as many people as we can, talking to our mentors, advisors, colleagues who have been to CES, first of all. We've started reaching out to media outlets, and this podcast being a great opportunity to let the word out. We're working with a marketing firm to make sure our booth setup exhibits are good. We're trying to set up meetings with investors out there, doing the venture match, for example, setting up meetings ahead of time with potential partnerships, things like that.
It's a startup roadmap to some degree, Amrit, right?
Yeah.
It's very exciting, and I think we're going to actually go with our strengths. We are the company that actually cares about the person who is suffering from sleep. So we will actually be asking you, are you the person who's awake at 3 a.m.? On day 3 of CES, most people will be sleep deprived. And when you're walking by, there's so much fascinating technology over there, from virtual reality to augmented this, but there's also probably very few companies who are asking you that, are you suffering? Do you want to get better? It's the New Year's too. Everybody has New Year resolutions. Sleep is a brilliant New Year resolution. I think our promo videos that we'll be playing for 1 minute will harp on that if you want a New Year's resolution, improving your sleep, these kind of therapies, it takes a couple of months. You see results within a few weeks, and within a couple of months, you actually see results. They can actually help you achieve your other resolutions, like quitting smoking or losing weight. Sleep can actually hurt you from not being able to actually perform your other New Year's resolutions. So I think we'll make a lot of noise about that and try to get people to jump on the New Year's resolution trend.
A fascinating step into the wearable space. The company is Awarables. Madhvi Upender is Chief Science Officer and co-founder, and her co-founder, as well as the company's CTO, is Amrit Bandi. Thank you both for coming, and have a great CES.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really think that everybody has the right to feel their best so that you can actually do the things that you need to do to be your best. Sleep will get you there, and the Wearables, as a company, we will help you get better in sleep.
Love the New Year's resolution. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Joining us now is Rob Löring. He is business director at a Dutch company called Xsens, and he joins us now from the Netherlands. Rob, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Tyler. Great to have me.
Let's start with Xsens itself, and I feel like I need to spell it for everybody because it's one of those funky spellings from the tech world. Xsens, Xsens. Tell us a bit about the company. It's relatively new, but really starting to make a business plan that includes pretty broad ambitions across the wearable space.
Yes, that's correct. Well, Xsens has been around since the year 2000. We have since then been specializing in making motion trackers, which are able. Those are small sensors, IMU-based sensors, which are capable of tracking their own 3D orientation. And with that technology, we make all kinds of products. We make sensors which can be used for industrial applications, to put on robots, unmanned vehicles, flying objects, to stabilize them. But also we use them to put on humans for full body motion capture, which has been used for movies, games, biomechanical research. So a very interesting market to use these IMU sensors. And nowadays we're also broadening our scope that we also delivering those sensors and making them smaller to go more into the wearables market, where people can use them for all kind of different applications connected to mobile devices.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an interesting point you make about the shrinking size and some of the cost aspects of sensors themselves, Rob, because that then enables Xsens to get into a suite of various B2B industries, whether that's motion capture that you mentioned, analysis, but also branching out into healthcare, into sports, into more industrial applications. You have quite a broad spectrum of uses for this technology.
Yeah, that's true. And while our core IP really lies in what we call sensor fusion, so using sensor data from, for example, accelerometers, gyroscopes, magnetometers, GPS, other kind of precision systems, we are capable of fusing all that, the basic inaccurate data together and give our clients a very accurate reading of, for example, position or 3D orientation.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the trend right now, where the wearable industry is going? And I feel like you, Rob, and Xsens are especially well qualified to answer that, given the depth and breadth of potential applications in industries that you touch. So where is the trend heading, at least in the next year, few years, the short term?
We've always seen, and it's always been on market that sensors run on human bodies has been used in the professional market for professional mocap, for biomechanical studies at universities, for example. But we see now that the size of these sensors can be reduced and are reduced, so they get smaller, they get more accessible for broader audience. The price goes down. And ultimately, we would see even that they would appear in clothing in a few years from now. So that everybody is wearing clothing with all kind of sensors in it. Next to that, I think that also then it's logical that all these sensors are connected through your phone, through the internet, through a cloud. And then you can think of a lot of different applications you can make with that to support health applications, sports applications, rehab. Yeah, and also there we see that the design started with that, but the design gets smaller and smaller, but also more and more smart. So it's easier to wear them. They can measure more body functions, so not only accelerations or speed or so, but also you already have heart rate sensors, but you combine them with stress sensors, hydration sensors, calorie sensors, all these kind of things. I think that's where it will go through. And I just read somewhere that research that in 2025 we believe, that research believes that there will be more than 10% of us all will wear connected clothing every day.
I think we're heading right toward that. I think that's a fair prediction, right? Pulling some of the language of how you at Xsens describe yourselves, I want to hone in on one aspect, Rob, if we may. You say that our sensor fusion technologies enable a seamless interaction between the physical and digital worlds. Interesting, but it's the front part of that description that has my attention. Sensor fusion technologies. Where do you envision the fusion, or how do you envision that coming to life here?
Well, if we talk about sensor fusion, we feel that at the moment there are so many sensors which are really accessible for the broad audience, like accelerometers and gyroscopes. You can find them already in all kind of devices, in your watch, in your phone, and they are giving very an enormous load of data, but the data is not per se accurate. But when you want to use it directly, then you will encounter phenomena like drift or a lot of offset. And I think there comes Xsens into play with the sensor fusion algorithms and the biomechanical models, bringing that all together with the sensor data and being able to still from these inaccurate sensors give you a very accurate reading and feedback on how you are moving and also in a repeatable way.
Mm-hmm.
So you can compare your sessions day after day, for example.
So CES seems like a great place for Xsens to be, given the fact that there are so many industries, so many vertical sectors not just represented at CES, but engaging, having those conversations. What does Xsens have planned for CES 2020 as a strategy or as a product unveil? How much can you give away at this early date, Rob?
Yeah, at the moment we're in the middle of preparing this big product launch for us. So I'm not going to unveil the name yet, but what we will show at CES is a new sensor from Xsens, much smaller form factor, and it will be able to connect directly with mobile platforms like a tablet, a computer, or a mobile phone. And that will enable all kind of smart entrepreneurs, engineers to really start diving into data coming from our sensors and applying that onto apps connected to the cloud. Start applications like what we foresee is clinical applications or rehab at home, sports, following sports athletes, but also giving coaching from a distance, or even that we foresee people that they will develop artificial intelligence coaching based on our sensor data.
Mm-hmm. One broader question, if you don't mind, Rob, because we see the Dutch presence at CES growing year after year. The Netherlands brings a strong contingent to Eureka Park every year. It has generally a large startup pavilion showing off the innovations that are coming out of the Netherlands. What is it that makes your country so strong, such a tech leader? At CTA, we've identified your country as an innovation champion, the top rank in both of our international innovation scorecards. So, although we have our own set of metrics and measurements, what is it in your mind, Rob, that makes the Netherlands such a tech powerhouse?
Well, I think it's also because of the history. Dutch are strong business-minded people, but with a combination of very good universities here, a lot of technical universities. We see that the Dutch are combining their business minds together with the technical knowledge. And they're really good listening to the market, what the market wants, and they are really creative in building all kind of new products to answer these market demands.
And I understand this is actually going to be your very first visit to CES coming up. Do you have any idea what to expect outside your booth and the meetings you have planned and some of the product innovation you talked about?
Well, I heard, of course, a lot about the CES. Every year I see a lot of tech news coming when CES is on. So I expect a big show with a lot of attendance and a lot of enthusiasm for all kind of tech. And what we try to do is to find our place in between all these other big companies, and to be able to show off and a little bit surprise the market what can be done already with this kind of technology, because I think we are in the forefront of these kind of tech, bringing sensor fusion based on IMU sensors to CES.
Rob Löring is Business Director of Xsens in the Netherlands with big plans for CES 2020. Rob, we look forward to seeing you there and hope you have a fantastic initial CES experience.
Okay. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you very much.
All right, that does it for this edition of CES Tech Talk. We want to help you be CES ready, so one of your first steps is to subscribe to this podcast. That way, you won't miss a single episode of CES Tech Talk as we're gearing up for the big show. Speaking of CES 2020, January 7th through the 10th in Las Vegas, your second step is to check out all the information you need and get registered and make your plans at ces.tech. That is ces.tech. None of this is even remotely possible without the stars of our podcast, our executive producer, Tina Anthony, and our senior studio engineer, John Lindsay. Tina and John, y'all are the best in the business. I'm Tyler Suiters. Let's talk tech again soon.